All right, so let's go to this story. Electricity Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa and Tshwane Mayor Cilliers Brink have just wrapped up a media briefing following an inspection of those downed pylons. We know, of course, that it caused the temporary closure of the N4 highway east of Pretoria. It's also led to many areas still being without power. Let's bring in our reporter on the scene now, Pule Letshwiti-Jones. Thank you so much. So a clear sign that they're going to be assisted, the city of Tshwane, by Eskom, lots of working together, discussion about new poles that are tamper-proof. Lots have come out, but I know that you've got the electricity minister with you this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely, Sally. I mean, there was a meeting between the Minister of Electricity and, of course, the Mayor of Tshwane, Cilliers Brink, in the afternoon, where they met at Tshwane House to try and figure ways as to how they can attend to this urgent issue whereby the electric pylons have been badly damaged, about 6, which have plunged most of the areas in the Pretoria East into darkness. They've mentioned now a bit of solutions, which they say are not temporary, but also permanent, in terms of installing monopoles, which they believe could be a solution to addressing this challenge the city finds itself in. You would know yesterday in a statement that said that they had lost just about 300 megawatts, which is costly, and therefore they've tried to restore power in some certain parts of the city in Pretoria East. However, some areas have still been hard hit by this current situation. Joining me right now, of course, is the Minister of Electricity, Kgosientsho Ramokgopa. Thank you very much for speaking to us on eNCA. Let's chat about the briefing quickly before we go into other details. You're saying that you want to install monopoles. How sufficient is this? Are you confident this can speak to this issue the city is battled with? Yes, sir.
Well, I must say that the city has been taking the lead in responding to this challenge, and I did acknowledge the role played by Executive Mayor Cilliers Brink in trying to resolve this issue. And from a technical briefing that we have resolved is that it's a best option to go the route of monopoles as opposed to using the traditional pylons for a number of reasons. The first one is that the availability of the pylons and also just the lead time in the manufacturing of the pylons just undermines your ability to respond in an agile manner when you have a crisis of this nature. And secondly is that the monopoles, they deny opportunity for crime. We have every reason to believe, of course, the investigations will be more conclusive than I'm suggesting now, but essentially that there could have been a criminal element that wanted to, if you like, steal some of the steel that is here for purposes of generating some income, and in the course of that just compromise the structural integrity, and 3 of these poles were affected, and then they took the other 6 down, and that has invited darkness into the areas of Mamelodi, the most part of Pretoria East, including the automotive hub here in the Roslyn and the industrial areas here. So the impact is significant to the economy of the city, and that's why we are working to support the city to ensure that we come with solutions that are faster and more enduring going into the future. And the idea of monopoles is not going to be experimented on here. It has been used in other parts, and in fact that's the direction that the country is taking. So we are supportive of them to the extent that they need additional assistance. We'll do that. As indicated, there's 3 teams from Eskom that is working with the city to ensure that we restore and energize these areas as soon as possible.
Okay, and just speaking about the issue of the sabotage we're seeing here play, possibly, is this contributing to the already challenges we're seeing of the energy crisis in this country as well, particularly in the capital city? Is this contributing to the problem you're faced with as well?
Well, the challenges of attack on our strategic and critical infrastructure are well documented. From rail lines, now we know it's a pylon water infrastructure, and it's something that is receiving a particular attention. So essentially what is happening here is just a manifestation of the rampant lawlessness and how brazen people are. They can go to any length just to ensure that they sabotage this infrastructure, and that's why we have been calling for harsher penalties. the recategorization of some of these crimes. These are economic infrastructure meant to collapse the economy of the country. But yes, like I said, we'll wait for the investigations to be concluded, but there's sufficient evidence visually to suggest that the structural integrity has been compromised. They've been eating away, if you like, these components for some time, and that's what led to the collapse. One of the conversations we've had is to ensure that we do an assessment, just a reconnaissance of the existing infrastructure, the pylons in this instance, just to determine if they might not suffer the same fate, and I'll elevate it. I think at the national level we also need to look at that and see if none of these are compromised. And you can see that once the grid is interrupted in one area, it just affects, if you like, a bigger radius than what generation does. So it's an area of vulnerability that is receiving attention, and I'm sure that going into the future we'll have to think creatively about the creation of microgrids so that you are able to isolate an area that is attacked or has difficulty in evacuating the electrons, so that you don't affect a bigger area. But yes, for now we're satisfied about the work that the city is doing. Of course, we need pace and agency. We do appreciate the limitations. We do appreciate also the anger and the frustration of communities, and we're doing everything possible to support the city to make sure that this situation is addressed and resolved.
Minister, of course, just on a different note now, we know that we received the power alert saying there's stage 3 today. Tomorrow, stage 5 will then kick in. What are you preparing for, particularly because we're approaching the winter season? Do you still say we will not escalate to stage 8?
So one of the issues that I raised when I had the marathon briefing to the country in relation to our visit to the Eskom power station, I make the point that the biggest problem that is confronting us is the unreliability of the generation units. I mean, you can see within a space of less than 48 hours, we move from no load shedding to stage 5 of load shedding. So that's unpredictability is a function of a number of reasons. I've elucidated on that, the underinvestment on maintenance, the refurbishment of this infrastructure, the issues of skills, the hemorrhaging of skills there. It's just undermining our ability to sustain, if you like, at a consistent level, generation. Of course, during long weekends we are helped by the fact that the peaks are not as pronounced because they tend to attenuate, because it's not concentrated use of energy in the particular periods of the morning and the afternoon, and that's why you see demand almost attenuating and relieving us of higher stages of load shedding. To your question, yes, I'm still at that point that if there's any significant change in relation to our outlook, we'll communicate that to the general public. Of course, like I said, we are not just only going to rely on the generation side. There's to be a lot of effort that we are doing on the demand side, and I think ourselves, viewers there at home, there's a lot that we can do to bring down demand without compromising our ability to meet our daily requirements as we go about life, and also commerce undermining their returns to shareholders. So we'll be coming out very aggressively and also introducing some of the latest technology to help us to reduce the demand side, because once we reduce the demand side, we are able to close the deficit, the gap, and essentially undermine the potential of going to higher stages of load shedding. No, I'm still at that point. If there's any significant change, we'll communicate to the general public. We are doing everything possible that you don't go beyond stage 6, and if there's any changes in that, we will communicate. I'll be brutally honest. I did say also it's going to be a very, very, very difficult winter. Let me repeat, it's going to be an exceptionally difficult winter. We know that on a summer condition, the deficit is 6,000 megawatts. We know that when we go into winter, the peak can go up to 37,000 megawatts, which is a difference of significantly more than the 6,000 megawatts that we are short of. So it's important that we do our part. We'll communicate. But at the current rate of trips and failures, it's going to be an exceptionally difficult winter. I did say that the projection going into the summer period, when we bring the 2-3 units from Cilliers 3,000 megawatts, and some of the initiatives that require around 2 to 3 months to kick in, of course we'll be in the middle of winter. You will not be able to feel those effects, but I'm confident that going beyond winter, we have everything within our arsenal to to resolve this challenge of load shedding, and we'll be able to, like I said, we're going to Cabinet to present what those interventions are, and we'll communicate to the general public. I do accept that time is against us, but we're doing everything possible, technically possible, to ensure that we don't go to higher stages of load shedding. Pule.
Minister, I have to wrap, but just lastly, will you be meeting the National Union Mine Workers? They allege to have information of corrupt ESCOM officials, and they want to hand it over to you. One of the officials was speaking to eNCA just recently, and they say they have information in regards to the corruption that's been happening here, which is quite concrete and which could be to your advantage. Will you be meeting with the NUM officials?
Oh, we welcome that. I mean, like I said, when I went to the stations, we met the union representatives. I met the leadership of NUM at the national level, NUM at the national level. Out of those conversations, they were saying, like, look, if there's information that comes to their attention, they'll bring it to my attention. I'll most welcome that, and also pass it to Minister Cilliers and give them feedback and the nation on the kind of steps that we are taking to address the issues of corruption.
Minister, thank you very much for joining us. That's the Minister of Electricity, Kgosientsho Ramokgopa. They're just giving us a brief update, Sally, as to what will be the next step and how they'll handle the issue of the load shedding stages as well as we approach the winter season. But most importantly, saying they're trying to find ways to resolving the issue that's currently affecting the capital city by installing monopoles and, of course, ensuring that there are more technicians from ESCOM who will be on the ground from today onwards to ensure that they can recover some of the lost megawatts in this area as well, particularly in Pretoria East here in Tshwane.
Yeah, and that site, Pule, behind you of that downed pylon really does speak for itself. It is quite astonishing just how bad the damage is. And we also know, as was said at the briefing, there's clear signs of tampering, that a lot of these structures, these cross structures, were actually just ripped off and sold. And that has destabilized these pylons, so that when the wind came through during the storm over the weekend, they were just too fragile to withstand the storms. Interesting, these monopoles. I know that they've been used in Indonesia, and it's one single pole with a number of very high up struts, which would feasibly make it impossible to steal without injuring yourself. All right, thank you so much for that update. Really do appreciate it. Pule Letshwiti-Jones in Pretoria.